Some people learn the hard way, and usually they learn far too late. There is a fundamental law of the universe that your enemies often overlook. You don't defeat the chosen, you simply activate them. That realization is the bitter pill they find impossible to swallow. They watched your quietness and mistook it for a lack of strength. They saw your absence from the drama and assumed you were finished. They even took your silence as a form of permission to walk over you. But for someone like you, silence isn't a sign of surrender. It is the loading screen before the impact. It is the steady, calm hand resting on the chessboard right before the entire board is flipped. By the time they realize you weren't gone, but were actually gearing up, the game is already over. Listen to me closely, almost as if I am speaking directly into your chest. People tried to make you feel small because your potential for growth terrified them to their core. They tried to smear your name because they could see your future was becoming too bright for them to handle. They tried to bait you into making noise, hoping to pull you out of your element, because they couldn't survive your stillness. The whole time they were attacking, they kept feeding themselves the same tired lie. They aren't coming back. They're done. They lost. But the universe doesn't move based on gossip or the opinions of the insecure. It moves with surgical precision. It moves like a blade in the dark, silent, certain, and completely undefeated. There is a specific truth that hits your detractors the hardest. The strongest people don't feel the need to clap back. They simply level up. You didn't fight the way they expected you to. You didn't explode in anger. You didn't beg for their understanding. And you didn't waste your precious energy trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't afford your value anyway. Instead, you stayed composed while they became reckless. You stayed focused while they got loud and desperate. You stayed aligned with your purpose while they spiraled. Now, look at the results of that discipline. They wanted to witness a breakdown, but instead they provided the pressure for your breakthrough. They wanted you scrambling, but they found you being strategic. They wanted a reaction, but they got a revolution. What truly breaks their spirit isn't just your success. It's the fact that their tactics failed to move you. It's the reality that they threw shade, and you used it as shelter to grow. They threw stones at you, and you used them as steps to climb higher. They tried to bury you under the weight of their judgment, not realizing that you are a seed, and they were actually planting you. That is the curse of dealing with a chosen one. Your enemy's hands inadvertently become the very tools of your elevation. They don't understand that the pressure they applied was the exact force needed to shape you, much like coal becomes a diamond, or an arrow is pulled back into tension before it is finally released to tear the sky open. I know what your mind is asking right now. If I have really won this round, why does it still feel so quiet? It's because a true checkmate doesn't come with fireworks or a parade. It comes with finality. It comes with a heavy, settling silence that follows the last move, when the opponent stares at the board and realizes there is absolutely nothing left for them to do. That is what you are experiencing right now. That stillness isn't a sign of confusion. It's a confirmation of your victory. It is the universe saying, "It is done." That quiet isn't an empty void. It is the sound of your enemies losing their oxygen. It is the peace that comes when the battle is won and the smoke has finally cleared. You might also be wondering why they keep watching you if they claim to hate you so much. It's because you have become a mirror they cannot look away from. You are living proof that discipline beats manipulation every single time. You show them that alignment is stronger than envy, and that quiet consistency will always outlast loud sabotage. They watch because your life exposes their limits. They watch because you remind them of everything they refuse to become, and every responsibility they refuse to take. Your presence has become a consequence they have to live with, and people who live in illusion absolutely hate facing consequences. Let me give you another perspective. When the universe picks you, it also protects you. This is why their attacks kept missing the mark. This is why the traps they set for you never quite closed. This is why the smears didn't stick, and the obstacles that should have ended your journey only served to refine your character. They were fighting you as if you were just a person standing alone. They didn't realize they were fighting the massive current of destiny standing right behind you. Nobody wins a war against the current. All they do is exhaust themselves until they eventually drown. Your power isn't in how loudly you speak. It's in how deeply you move through this world. You carry a specific kind of authority that doesn't require anyone's permission. It's a type of energy that changes the temperature of a room before you even open your mouth. It's the kind of presence that makes fake people nervous because you don't need anything they have to offer. You don't chase, you don't perform for likes, and you don't beg to be included in circles you've outgrown. You simply arrive, and when you arrive, the entire atmosphere has to adjust to your frequency. You aren't a candle that can be blown out by a little wind. You are a lighthouse. A candle flickers and dies, but a lighthouse stands firm and tells the storm exactly where to go. You have secured a checkmate that cannot be undone. This didn't happen because you got lucky. It happened because you got aligned. It wasn't because you out-talked your competition, but because you outlasted them. You didn't have to play dirty to win. You played deeper. Like someone who already knew the bissing of the G-ing-me before the firbelies v ti-ing, the piece was ifgodmoved, even when you couldn't logically explain why you felt so sure outwardly. That is the essence of being chosen. You can't always see the entire staircase, but you keep climbing anyway because something deep inside you knows the way. Before we go any further, I want you to pause for a second. If this message is hitting your spirit and making you feel seen or strengthened, support this mission. Like this video, subscribe, and share it so this energy can reach other chosen ones who might be sitting in their silence right now feeling lost. If you're able, consider a super thanks to help our team continue creating these high-energy, intention-driven messages. This isn't just content, it's purpose-driven work meant to keep the signal strong for people like you who are navigating the deep waters of transformation. Keep in mind that the board has shifted, the roles have reversed, and the people who thought they were miles ahead of you are about to learn an ancient truth. You cannot stop what was destined. You only end up proving why it was chosen in the first place. Every move you made in silence was a move they never saw coming. When the smoke finally clears, only the untouchable are left standing. Some people celebrate their wins way too early, not realizing the game ended while they were busy laughing. That truth lands like a bruise because it's the reality they are terrified to face. They mistook your distance for defeat and your restraint for fear. They didn't understand that silence in the hands of the chosen is actually compression. It is pressure building up. It is the pause right before a massive impact. Now that the dust is settling, they are realizing far too late that they should have never provoked you. They danced on your quiet as if it were a grave, but you were actually in a cocoon. While they were busy talking, you were recalibrating your entire life. While they were laughing, you were restructuring your foundation. You became dangerous in ways they don't even have the mental range to comprehend. There is a subtle shift happening right now. You can feel that uncomfortable pressure in the air whenever your name comes up in their circles. It's the moment they realize you didn't disappear. You upgraded. You stepped into a position so solid and so precise that they can't even figure out how you got there. They blinked, checked the board, and realized there are no moves left for them. That is the beauty of a quiet victory. It isn't loud or dramatic. It is final. You won by playing smarter, not harder. You didn't exhaust yourself explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. The power of being chosen isn't flashy. It doesn't perform for approval or announce its arrival with a trumpet. It moves through long pauses and decisions that look strange to people who only understand shortcuts. That stillness they mocked, that was your sharpening ground. That was where your instincts became precise, and your vision became crystal clear. While they chased applause and quick wins, you disappeared into the background and came back refined. They gamed the system and twisted narratives, but they made a fatal error. They assumed you were playing the same game they were. You weren't. Let's talk about that quietness again. Real wins don't echo, they settle. Noise comes from the struggle for dominance, but actual dominance is silent. This quiet isn't uncertainty, it's the aftermath. The enemy isn't celebrating because there is nothing left to celebrate. They are stunned and recalculating, trying to figure out how they lost a game they thought they were winning. They watch you now because your presence disrupts their entire narrative. You are walking evidence that consistency beats sabotage, and that quiet discipline will always overcome loud insecurity. You weren't being ignored by the world, you were being preserved. You weren't stalled, you were being positioned. Every delay wasn't wasted time, it was an investment that is now compounding. Every moment you thought nothing was happening, something critical was being built behind the scenes. Your skills were sharpening, your awareness was deepening, and weak attachments were being stripped away. You were being protected from doors that were simply too small for your future. Even when it felt like rejection, it was actually strategy. The most dangerous players don't rush, they wait until the board favors them completely. Your silence is no longer invisible to them, it is loud. It shakes their confidence and cracks the illusions they've been hiding behind. You don't owe them visibility, updates, or explanations. Let your composure do the talking for you, let your calm confuse them, let the fact that you are still standing after everything they threw at you get under their skin. That isn't arrogance, it's positioning. They were reading you like a simple story, but they didn't realize you were a code that only reveals itself at the right time. Reality selects the real, not the loudest. Don't break your silence just to prove a point to people who don't matter. Don't step into their chaos just to be seen. That is exactly what they want, to pull you out of your position of power. But they are too late. The move has already been made. You have secured what they cannot undo. It's ironic how sure they were that you were out of options. They treated you like a disposable piece, not realizing that the underestimated piece is the only one that transforms when it reaches the other side of the board. You didn't just survive, you evolved. The most dangerous moment in any battle is when one side thinks nothing is happening. That's when the trap is already closed. The deadliest moves are executed while the other side is distracted and loud. What you were practicing wasn't hesitation, it was strategic patience. You weren't waiting because you were afraid. You were waiting because you were ahead and could see the timing. While others rushed to be seen, you slowed down so you could see everything. While they reacted emotionally, you observed with a cold, clear eye. You were calculating while they were burning energy. Think about a lion. It doesn't chase every shadow or waste energy roaring at nothing. It crouches low, eyes locked, muscles loaded, and breathing slowed. Real power isn't in the chase. It's in the moment the chase ends with one final, decisive move. That's how you've been moving quiet on the outside, but dangerous underneath. They assumed you were falling behind because they only measure momentum by speed. But momentum often looks like solitude. It looks like being misunderstood for long stretches. Beneath that surface, however, systems were shifting, and the field was adjusting itself specifically for you. They pushed your buttons and withheld validation to bait you into a mistake, but you gave them nothing. You stayed centered and disciplined, and that kind of control terrifies people who rely on chaos. Patience isn't passive, it's predatory. It is pressure held back on purpose. It is the tension in a bowstring pulled tight, waiting for the perfect shot. The ones who dominate in the long term don't flinch. They understand that what is truly theirs doesn't need to be chased or defended loudly. It locks in through alignment. You became one of those master players. You felt the frustration of the wait, the sting of being misread, and the urge to strike early just to prove them wrong. But you didn't. You held your ground and trusted the process instead of your temporary impulses. That decision is why everything has tilted in your favor. Strategic patience is knowing exactly when not to move. And now you don't feel urgency, you feel certainty. You aren't waiting for the moment to happen. You have become the moment. Everything was aligning around you, and now the right opportunities are circling back because your value has become unavoidable. Precision doesn't announce itself, and it certainly doesn't rush. It waits until the moment is fatal. By the time they realize what hit them, the sound is gone and the outcome is settled. Most people confuse power with progress moving in a straight line. They think it should always look clean and predictable. But real precision often looks like chaos from the outside. It looks like missed chances and wrong turns to the untrained eye. That's why they misread you. They assumed disorder meant failure, but you were actually being aimed. Every pause tightened your focus. Every setback adjusted your angle. This wasn't randomness, it was calibration. You don't move on impulse just to feel productive. You move on instinct. Instinct doesn't scream, it waits and watches. It speaks quietly to those who can sit with uncertainty without panicking. That is what separated you from the pack. You could sit in the unknown without unraveling. While they were asking why you weren't moving, you were building deep awareness and discernment. You were figuring out who and what no longer fit into your next phase of life. Rejection wasn't personal, it was a redirection away from something that was misaligned with your soul. The opportunities that vanished weren't stolen, they were removed so they wouldn't cost you more than they gave. Your heartbreak didn't happen to hurt you. It happened to crack open old layers so your real strength could surface. Where you are going requires extreme accuracy. You have to arrive as the right version of yourself, not just arrive quickly. Being off by even a small margin would have put you in the wrong place. That is how intentional your positioning has been. Let them assume you are falling behind. By the time they realize what you are doing, reaction won't even be an option for them. They chased timelines, but you followed timing. That is why your presence is so unsettling to them now. You were built for impact, not noise. What is arriving in your life now couldn't show up until all the pieces were perfectly set. You can feel the shift. The confusion has thinned, the resistance has eased, and your movements feel intentional. That is clarity, and when clarity locks in, speed follows naturally. What looked like a delay was actually the time needed to build a kingdom. You might have asked for a little relief or a small opening, but you were given pressure instead. That wasn't because you were overlooked. It was because you were being prepared for something much larger than a small opening. They thought they buried you, but you were in the ground growing roots. You've been living in a space that is heavy to explain, the tension between your past self and your future self. That long quiet wasn't confusion. It was the signal before the breakthrough. You aren't just rising, you are being launched. Launches are never comfortable. Before anything powerful takes off, there is massive resistance and compression. You weren't being suffocated by life, you were being compacted into a diamond. You asked for peace, and the universe built you power. You hoped for survival, but you were granted authority. The storm wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to clear every obstacle from your path. The discomfort you've been sitting in is preparation, not punishment. You've simply outgrown the smaller versions of yourself. You can't fake small talk anymore, and you can't force yourself into rooms that drain your spirit. That's not instability, it's clarity. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough that hasn't finished its reveal yet. Real power requires that everything which would misuse it be removed first. That's why you've been losing things and people. Space is being cleared. The silence around you is alignment. Everything is being narrowed and focused for what comes next. Your isolation wasn't a tomb. It was a womb where something stronger was forming. That restless sense that something is about to change is the final moment before your emergence. You are the light now. When you rise, it won't be into a version of yourself they recognize. You will no longer chase scraps because you realize you were built to lead the feast. Don't resist the stretch or run from the discomfort. This is where legends are shaped. They thought silence would erase you, but it was just the pause before the release. Once that release happens, there is no going back to the way things were. If you feel tired or heavy, let this message reset your focus. Remember how they doubted you and counted you out. Use that not to stay angry, but to sharpen your resolve. Boredom isn't a sign that you're done. It's a signal that your old fuel no longer works, because you've leveled up. This is where you outsmart them. You don't react, you refine. You become more intentional and disciplined than ever before. You move like someone who learned the game the hard way and now plays it flawlessly. Every action you take now is calculated. Every decision is cleaner. Every move is quieter, but has a much deadlier impact. While they waste their energy watching and comparing, you invest yours in total mastery. You don't need chaos to stay motivated. You use your clarity and your purpose. Let their past actions remind you why you cannot afford to get sloppy or settle for less. This is where you turn all that built-up pressure into precision and your motivation into unstoppable momentum. You aren't just keeping the pace. You are setting a new one. The ground didn't have to shake for the game to change. Real power doesn't need a grand announcement. It brings its own weight. It bends the room and makes the air feel different. The shift you've been waiting for hasn't just started. It has already settled into your very bones. You have moved from a place of seeking to a place of being. The checkmate is locked in, and the board belongs to you. Now, take a breath and recognize the authority you've earned through your silence and your strength.